Okay, so let's get into the software. First thing you need to do is have Steam installed. If you don't already have it, you need to do two things. First thing is slap yourself in the face. And the second one is head over to store.steampowered.com. Click this button right here, install Steam, and the rest should be self-explanatory. After installing, you have to create an account. It's all free, and you can then run Steam. Once you're inside Steam, your library will be empty, of course, if you just installed it. And you can head on over to the store where you can look for Pinball FX3, this piece of software right here. Okay, while you're downloading stuff, also head over to joy2key.net and click this download button to download that application. What Joy2Key will do for you is it will map the buttons you have installed on your cabinet to actual keystrokes on your keyboard. Okay, so once you have downloaded Joy2Key, you have to place it somewhere safe on your computer hard drive. I've placed mine in on the C drive, program files, Joy2Key. It's just two files that you drop in there. Okay. Let's continue by configuring Joy2Key. So you just double click Joy2Key to execute it. Mine is already running. So I'll just hit right click and open main window. You will have a default profile here. Mine is called Pinball FX3, so you may want to rename it to Pinball FX3 using this button right here. Okay. Then on the left you will see a generic list of sticks and buttons. As I showed you in the hardware video, we have 10 buttons installed on our cabinet. And you should map them like this. It will become clear afterwards why exactly this way. But just copy what you see here. So for the first button, it will be disabled by default. Just click Edit Button Assignment, hit the right arrow key and click OK. And afterwards do it for the remaining 9 until you get this setup. So button left, arrow left, arrow up, tab, escape, right control, space, enter, right shift, arrow down, and arrow right. You may want to change 2 additional settings here under settings and preferences. Activate start Joy2Key in minimized mode. So this is disabled by default. You will want to enable it. And also I have activated hide from taskbar when minimized. So you won't see Joy2Key appearing when you start it up. Okay. If you want to have Joy2Key start whenever you start Windows, so you don't have to worry about it anymore, just place a shortcut to Joy2Key in the following location. So C drive, users, your name, app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, menu start or start menu. I think it's start menu in English. Programs and start or startup or something like that. So this will make sure that whenever you start up your laptop, you will see that Joy2Key will be started, but because of the 2 settings we changed in the preferences, it will be automatically hidden behind this arrow right here. Okay, so that's actually the button to keyboard stroke input conversion completed. Since you have 2 monitors attached, you need to change some preferences in Windows itself as well. So you right click the desktop. I think it's display settings or something, the second to last entry. Okay, mine looks a bit different now because I only have, I don't have the play field attached at the moment. I'm just using the laptop as a regular laptop for recording this. So I will use these screenshots to explain further. Okay, so you will see if you have two monitors attached that there are two monitors displaying here in this window. Monitor 1 in my case is the display of my laptop, and monitor 2 is the play field. Now this will probably look a bit different. That's to say that monitor 2 will probably be larger than monitor 1, but because my laptop has a 4K display and my play field is just a regular HD display, it looks like this in my case. Okay, you can always hit identify here to have Windows show the numbers on your screen so you know exactly which monitor is 1 and which is 2. Next, click the second monitor, so that's probably your play field at this moment. And yeah, scroll down. Here you will set a native resolution for your monitor. And most important setting here is that you set the screen to portrait mode instead of landscape mode. You will also see when you set it to portrait mode that the resolution, the lowest number will become first and the higher number will become second. And in landscape mode it's the other way around. So these settings are correct. Next you want to expand the displays. I don't know by heart what the other options are in English, but I think basically you have the option to duplicate and to expand. So you take the expand option, don't take the duplicate option. And since Pinball FX3 always shows the play field on the primary monitor, you have to make sure that your play field monitor is set to the main display. So you can use this checkbox right here to do that. One last thing of note is try to, it will be important later on when we go to the settings in Pinball FX3, try to make sure that the tops of those two monitors here are perfectly aligned. Normally they should snap into place if you drag the monitors around. Okay. One final setting you need to do in Windows is right-click the taskbar and click the bottom entry taskbar settings or something. And you should have an option here. Multiple monitors, show taskbar on all monitors. You want to disable that. Why? Because it might work if you leave it enabled, but in my case, as you saw in the gameplay video, I had the laptop monitor configured as the back glass, which is the pretty picture of the pinball table with the matrix display. If I don't activate this, you will see a taskbar at the bottom of the back glass, which isn't as pretty. Okay, so at this moment we have Joy to Key configured, so your buttons can communicate with Windows, and we have all the settings in Windows done. Okay, next up, let's start Pinball FX. Yeah, my internet connection is quite crappy here, so maybe the game tries to connect to the internet when starting up, so this might take long. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Or not. Yeah, just a moment. This will he will stop trying in a moment. First thing we're going to do is go over some of the options in pinball effects. Some are mandatory for playing the game in cabinet mode, and some are optional. I will go over all the settings. I will go over all the settings that I've changed. And I will indicate which one are mandatory and which one are just optional. Okay, so we're not connected, but no problem there. First off, when you want to build a cabinet, you're going to need a cabinet code from the developer, Zen Studios. And you can request it by clicking this button, this pinball cabinet icon right here. So if you, I'm not going to click it because that will show my personal cabinet mode code, and which I don't want to do. But you just click here and you'll get a form to you can fill in and request a code from Zen Studios. They will probably ask you to send them a picture of your work in progress. In my case, it was just sufficient to take a picture of my laptop and the monitor I was going to use in landscape mode, and an Xbox controller attached. So I got the code when I was just starting out building the cabinet. They're real cool about it, so just go ahead and request that before you start building the cabinet. Okay, let's go over the regular options. In the audio section, the only thing I have changed is the menu voiceover. I turned it to off because you will notice when you navigate the menu, a voice says the title of everything you click, and it's real annoying in my opinion. So I turned that off. In the video section, I set everything to the highest possible, except virtual synchronization. I turned that off because the game looks more fluid with VSync turned off. In UI and streaming section, I left this one on, licensed music. But basically, if you want to stream pinball gameplay, you probably want to turn this off because there's a bunch of licensed tables, like Star Wars tables and a bunch of Marvel tables, and you will get copyright problems if you upload videos with that licensed music. You can use the music from the tables that Zen made themselves. So, but just to be safe, if you're streaming, set this to off. Guide character I set to off. It was on originally. I don't remember quite what that did. I think it also has to do with additional pop-ups in the menu and stuff. Pop-up message display, if you leave it on, you will see notifications constantly in the top right of your play field. Basically for every ball you hit, you get some XP, and it always shows your the XP you've gained on screen, which I don't care about, so I turn it off. Wizard power display. If you have seen the gameplay video, you'll have seen probably that at the bottom right of the play field there was an icon displaying my wizard power. That's something specific for Zen tables. I set this to usable so that the icon is there when I can use it, and it just disappears when my wizard power is used up. So it just keeps the play field nice and clean. Dot matrix size I set to off. Normally your dot matrix will appear in the top left corner of your screen by default, but since I have a dedicated monitor for the backlash and the dot matrix display, I can turn it off here. Once you have your cabinet code, you can activate the dot matrix in the cabinet mode settings, which we'll go over later. Yeah, if you're using a cabinet, you want to turn it here off here in the normal options. Okay. Oh yeah. Also, if you want to use triggers for the flippers for entering your top score, your initials, when you've reached the top score, you have to set this to enabled. So this allows you, yeah, basically to type letters without having to touch an actual keyboard, which is of course necessary if you're running the game in cabinet mode. Okay, now the control section. As you can see, the settings here mirror the settings we did in Joy to Key, obviously, because left arrow, up arrow, down arrow, we want to translate all those settings to pinball effects to the game itself from Joy to Key. Now, of course, left flipper, left arrow, right flipper, right arrow doesn't make much sense, but okay, it's still playable. But if you see nudge to the left, nudge to the right, up arrow and down arrow, that really doesn't make any sense. Now, the reason I've mapped the controls like this is that I can use the buttons on my right hand to in the menu. Maybe let me just show you. So if you head over to single player, it looks different now, but it's the same principle when running the game in cabinet mode. If you want to select a table to play, you have to use your buttons down, up, right and left to go to the corresponding table. You can also use the shift button to switch to the next category. So by setting the buttons the way that I did, I can use the three buttons on the right hand side of the cabinet. So it translates to the right button, to the right arrow. I can use the right flipper basically to navigate right through my tables. The left flipper to navigate left. Then the left and right nudge buttons can be used to go up and down in the menu. And the right shift here, which I have mapped to nudge forward, which is also on my right hand, can be used to skip through the different categories of tables. So basically, I just had a look around the menus. I tried this before assigning the buttons, and I tried to determine which were all the buttons I needed just to be able to navigate the menus completely. I have every single button mapped that you actually need, except for the I button. I stands for information. In some screens you can push the I, you can press the I key and you get some extra information. Well, that's the only thing that's not possible on my cabinet, because I only have 10 buttons and not 11. If I've had an 11 button, I would have placed it somewhere and mapped it to I, so I can literally control everything from within the game, from the cabinet. Okay, so one final look at the controls. So left and right flipper using the arrows, launching the ball using the enter button, so it confirms your selections in the game menu, and you can use it to launch the ball. View mode, right control, this is for changing the camera. You don't normally want to change your camera if you're running in cabinet mode, but you have the option. Nudge forward, right shift. Nudge to the left and nudge to the left and nudge to the right, the up and down arrows. So they can perform a double action. You can use it to nudge in game and navigate the menus when you're out of the game. The wizard power I talked about is linked to the tab button, which also has some use somewhere in the menu. Williams Pinball visual extras I've mapped to space. The visual extras for the William tables, basically they what Zen Studios did is they recreated original tables that were created many years ago, most of them by Williams Pinball. So they basically made digitized versions of real existing pinball tables, but they added some layer of extra eye candy on top, which you can activate and deactivate using the space button, which is mapped to one of the 4 buttons in the front of the cabinet. So that's the control section. Just try to make it as logical as possible, keeping in mind that I want to play the game as well as navigate the menus in a logical manner from the cabinet itself, from the 10 buttons I have there. So if you want to copy those, you can pause the video right now. So that's the top half of the controls and the bottom half. Okay. Now, one final thing we have to set up before you can start enjoying your table is the options here in the cabinet settings. Now, I'm not going to show you because of the personal code, like I said, but I've copied all the... My laptop is starting to sweat, so let's exit the game. Okay. Yeah, here you have a graph for all the settings in the cabinet settings. So if you click the cabinet icon, you will see all these settings here. As you can see, they're just a bunch of numbers with 2 settings turned to on. Now, the settings you use for these numbers are dependent on your personal taste on one hand, and on the other hand, the way you have set up your monitors in Windows. So to the left of the actual settings, this graph right here, it's just a screenshot of how my my setting screen looks. It's just a screenshot of this here, the Windows settings that we discussed earlier. So I've taken a screenshot and enlarged it. Now, maybe we should start with the backglass. So you have 2 sections, dot matrix settings and backglass settings. So the dot matrix display is the actual display where your score is shown and where some mini games are shown for some tables. And the backglass is just basically the pretty picture that sits at the back of the pinball table, of the pinball cabinet. So in my case, the picture that is displayed on the monitor of my laptop when I'm playing the game. Okay, so one thing to note for determining these coordinates, because basically that's what they are. These coordinates are pixels, pixel IDs, and they're derived from an x-axis and a y-axis. And when you look at your settings in Windows, what Zen Studios has done, they have locked the 0 point on the x-axis as well as the y-axis. They've locked it to the top left pixel of your playfield. So in my case, this monitor number 2 is my playfield. So right here is my 0 point. Okay, since monitor 2 is an HD display, this point right here is 1080. And since my laptop monitor is a 4K display, this point right here is minus 3840. Okay, for the y-axis, the numbers count up going downward. So what we have here is at the edge of my playfield, we have 1920. And at the bottom of my laptop screen, we have 2160. So it's just basically the dimensions of an HD display, 1920 by 1080, and the dimensions of a 4K display, 3840 by 2160. Okay, so when we return to the backlash settings, backlash repositioning you want to set to on. You don't really have an option to set it to off if you want to see it. By the way, I have created backlashes in 4K resolution for all the tables that are currently available, and you will find a link to those backlashes in the description of the video. So that might be very useful because I spent quite a lot of time creating those. So you're welcome for that. Okay, now when we look at these 4 settings right here, with backlash horizontal position and backlash vertical position, the system basically asks you for, again, the top left pixel of your backlash. Now, where is the top left pixel of our backlash situated in this setup? Well, on the x-axis, it's minus 3840, and on the y-axis it's on 0. So the coordinates for the top left pixel of my backlash are minus 3840, and yeah, here it should say 0, obviously, but I had slight offsets. I don't know the reason for it, so I noticed that if I just bump it up to 3, it's perfectly aligned. The next 2 settings, the system now knows where the top left pixel of your backlash is, but the system also needs to know how large your backlash is. So I've set the size just to basically the resolution of my display. So 3840 by 2160 is the resolution of my backlashes. Actually, it doesn't even have to be the resolution of the picture that you use, because it will stretch it out. It just has to match the resolution of the monitor that you're using as backlashes. By the way, speaking of the backlashes, so basically you can choose whatever picture you want to use for the backlash. So you can look up JPEGs or whatever yourself on the internet. And in order for it to work, in order for the game to recognize the backlashes, they have to have the same name as the tables. So here for the alien isolation table, the PXP file is the table file. So the table is called alien_isolation. If you drop a JPEG in there, which is also called alien_isolation, it will use this picture as backlash. Now the location of those files is basically where you dependent on where you installed the game. Now typically it's going to be your C drive, program files x86, Steam, Steam apps, common, Pinball FX3, data, Steam. So if you go to that location, you can find it, and you see PXP files there, one for every table you have. Then you know you're good to go, and you can drop the pictures in there. The naming is not always very logical, because, for example, the table I showed you was called the Sorcerer's Lair, and the file is Citadel. So it's basically work in progress names that they've just kept under the hood. So if I open this Citadel picture, you will see the picture that was used, that you saw during the first video, the gameplay video. Okay, moving back to the cabinet settings, you noticed in the gameplay video that you didn't only see this picture, but there was also a frame right here displaying the score, which is called a dot matrix display in technical terms. So if we return to our scheme, okay, we have the backlash completely covered right now. and I've marked here in red the position that the dot matrix display has in my setup. So first off, dot matrix display repositioning, you want to set it to on. You can choose the size of your dot matrix display yourself. As you can see here on the right, dot matrix horizontal size and vertical size. I think you're free to choose whatever size you want, but in reality they're in a 4:1 ratio. So yeah, that's why I took 2000 by 500, or you could, for example, if it's too big for you, you can take 1600 by 400. As long as you respect the 4:1 ratio for the dot matrix display, you can choose any size you want. Okay, so basically the same story for these two numbers right here. Where do we want to put the top left pixel of our dot matrix display? That's right here. Since mine is 2000 pixels wide and I have a screen that is 3840 pixels wide, my top left pixel needs to be at minus 2920. So it's just some basic math operations. I have 3840 pixels, of which I am going to use 2000. So I am left with 1840 pixels to be divided between the left and the right side. 1840 divided by 2 is 920. So this my display, my dot matrix display, ends at minus 920 and starts at minus 920. And then again for the y-axis, so remember the x-axis goes from left to right, the y-axis goes from top to bottom. I wanted to have 100 pixel margin here at the bottom. So my vertical position of this pixel right here is at 1560. Why? Because if I add the 500 from the height of the dot matrix display, I will come out right here at 2060, and the 100 pixel margin brings me to 2160, which is the resolution of my laptop's monitor. Okay, so yeah, basically that's it. I've been going on for over half an hour, but yeah, I think in this video we've literally covered everything you need to know to install the game and set it up completely so you can enjoy your cabinet as soon as possible. Okay, if you have any more questions about this video or one of the previous two videos I did, or if you have any feedback or whatever, just leave a comment. And don't forget to download the back glasses, because they having a full collection will save you a lot of time, and if you don't like one, you can always replace it with one of your own. Okay, that's it for now. Goodbye.